all students in both classes, while we're going over the guidelines, you put your laptops halfway for us. That way we don't have any distractions on the computers, keeping you from focusing on the things that we're going to be doing. Now, my class has already gone through some of these debate guidelines, so some of these things are going to be new for Mrs. Valenzuela's class, which is fine. But you will have all of these to look over while you are actually doing the debate. Okay? So, this is V. We ready to go? Trinity, did you find it?
We are ready.
Okay, we're going to start with number one at the top. First things first, you have your shared documents between the two of you, you and your debate partner. And up on the top, you have your positions that you're already taking. Okay, so you should know now which side you are taking. I don't know if I like that. I can hear it on the top right there. Okay, we'll work with it. So, number one, you are going to be alternating turns between you and your partner on your position and your arguments. So the first thing that we're going to be looking at here, each round is going to be 5 minutes long. It's going to give you 5 minutes to write what you need to write. And you can see right underneath number 2, it says that your response is going to be 2 to 5 sentences long. 2 sentences is like the bare minimum for you to be able to state a reason and a piece of evidence, okay? As well as acknowledging the previous point. So underneath, you can see kind of the structure of how your response is going to go. You first need to acknowledge that you understand or you heard the particular claim or the particular reason that your partner mentioned. We have a couple frames for you to be able to use. What we want to stay away from is, I hear what you're saying, but, because that doesn't really tell the other person that you actually understand what they're saying. So starting it with, you made the point that, ... I understand the idea that, ... or while you may believe that, ... okay? And then stating what your partner just stated. By restating what they said, it shows that you have an understanding and a knowledge of the argument as a whole, which is ultimately why we had you create a T-chart with both sides of the argument, okay? After
And
you
Mr.
acknowledge,
Ramirez,
go for it.
on that part, we want them to paraphrase what their partner said, not necessarily copy it word for word. Okay, we're just looking for a summary of the main point that your partner just made.
Definitely. I know about half of the people, maybe even more, are thinking, well, I'm just going to copy and paste what they put, and I'm just going to copy and paste the things that I wrote on my previous stuff and just put it all in. And the reality is, when we look at what you are writing, the transcription of your documents, because we have access to everybody's debate, we're going to be looking to see, did you actually write it in your own words? Did you actually respond in a way that shows that you are actively listening today and are engaged in today's conversation, okay? So that might maybe frustrate some of you, or I'm just telling you right now, we're going to be looking, and you need to make sure that you are writing in your own words. All right, moving on. After that, you're going to counter with your point, okay? We gave you some frameworks there as well. However, on the other hand, in actuality, those are just some ideas. You don't have to use those exactly. After you give your reason, then you need to provide your evidence. And this is where you might use a specific quote or you might paraphrase a specific aspect of the articles that you got, okay? The best arguments are the ones that have the best evidence, okay? So,
Mr. Ramirez, when they get to their evidence, is it okay if they copy and paste quotes from their T-chart?
if they want to use a specific quote from their T-chart, that's fine. I would suggest not just saying, I believe this, and then putting a quote, right? That's kind of an easy cop-out. So they need to still have an explanation or a commentary or something that is showing, once they put the quote, how that quote actually proves their side or their point. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Perfect. After you submit your response, you are going to look at your notes. So you're going to have multiple tabs open. So you're going to have to really fight the urge to want to see what your partner is writing. And the reality is if you finish before the 5 minutes is up, the partner's not going to be looking at it anyway. All right. But you're going to get a chance then to go back to your notes, see what other points you want to make sure that you can make, and then look at the opposite side to almost project or almost guess what kind of point are they going to make in response to yours? What kinds of things are they probably going to say in response to your argument? That way you're mentally prepared a little bit more to refute that, right? To give a good rebuttal, to give a good counter argument. Okay? So you have your notes. You're allowed to use your T-chart. You're allowed to look at any of the articles that you need during that time. And we're going to be walking around making sure that you guys aren't peeking at each other's text and what they're writing, because we want to give them the freedom to do it without any extra eyes on it. Okay?
So
So we
just
have right there
to
in bold.
clarify, if they don't feel like they need to look at their notes, can they just open the debate tab and watch what their partner is typing?
I mean, I am okay with that. The thing is, they're going to have to make sure that they are not responding back in any way. They need to allow their partner to say what they're going to say, just like in a normal debate, right? It's not like you can't interject in the middle and stop them in between. So even though we're doing it in a little bit different fashion, where they're not actually face to face, but they're using the document to do it, they need to be able to allow the other person to say what they need to say within the time, and they can't start typing any earlier. At the 5-minute mark, that's when they're going to begin. Now we're going to have a timer up.
That will help. So once your turn has ended, you have to keep your hands off the keyboard until the next round starts. You have to give the other side their 5 minutes to respond to you.
Definitely. Yeah, so we're going to have a timer up, so everybody's going to be able to see how much time you have. If the timer runs out and you haven't finished your argument, too bad, so sad. You're done. You had your 5 minutes. That means you need to be thinking ahead a little bit. All right? And then the last thing, number 5 on there, it says be sure to address the idea and not the person, right? The nice thing about this particular debate is not necessarily if you think it was right or wrong that the Indians were removed from their territory, right? You are proving a certain point. So you're trying to argue the point of what was the original intention by the United States in it. But even with that, we want to stay away from addressing like you're wrong and I'm right kind of a thing. Okay? It's not about you being right or wrong. It's about the ideas that the people are presenting and trying to prove that those ideas are not correct. Okay, I have a question in my class, Derek. Great question. Derek asked how many rounds debates are we going to do? So I might have skipped over that just a little bit. Or I don't know, maybe we didn't put it on there. We are going to have 4 rounds. You're going to have 3 opening rounds where you're going to go back and forth. So you will type 3 times, your partner will type 3 times. On the last round, the 4th round, will be your final remarks, your chance to kind of give it all you got to make your best closing argument, closing statements as to your side. So basically summarizing your point, trying to pick and choose what is the last thing I want them to be thinking about in relationship to this particular argument. So we will let you know when the last and final round is about to begin.
Mr. Ramirez, one thing I think we didn't cover was within each round, they're only allowed to make one specific point. So basically addressing one reason from your T-chart. You shouldn't be putting multiple reasons or multiple pieces of evidence within one round, correct?
Definitely. If they have multiple pieces of evidence for one reason,
it's okay as long as they stay within the 5-sentence limit.
Yes, they have to stay within the 5-sentence limit, and they have to stay within the one reason, and they have to be able to get it done in time.
Okay.
Good.
I think we're ready.
Okay, so you can open up your laptop.
Mr. Ramirez, we have one question. We have a student whose partner has not shown up on the document. Is Michael Rice there today?
Michael Rice is not here today.
Should I pair him up on another student's document
Yeah.
with a group of three?
So let's um let's have him add. Well, Jace is right there. Let's have him add.
He's right next to Charles, who is working with Mackay Easton. Can I add him on that
Okay,
document?
perfect.
Okay.
So some of you, at least my class, I don't know about your class, Mrs. V, but we do a lot of split screen. So we have some students that are wanting to have their debate on one side and then their T-chart or their notes on the other side. If you want to make sure that you don't see what they're writing, then you need to not split the screen. You need to have them in separate tabs on the same window. All right, so that way when you click on a tab, it takes up your whole, kind of like how mine is right here, right? So if this is the document they were writing on, then I would just click right there, and so I know that I'm not going to see it, right? It's going to take a little bit of your own individual willpower to not look, right? But that's what we're hoping, just to give the other person a fair chance to write what they need to write, and give you a chance to review some of your documents as they're doing that. Okay, Fiorella, where are you going to write? So, good question. As we begin, if you are number one, now on your document, you do not need to number necessarily, right? You should have your color, so we'll just know blues and reds will separate, but you're going to start writing underneath the essential question there. Why did the U.S. government pass the Indian Removal Act? So whoever's number one will begin when the timer starts, okay? Whoever's number one will begin when the timer starts. If you're not number one, then you need to have your T-chart open. You need to have your debate document minimized. And you have the opening statement.
So, Mr. Ramirez, to give them a frame for the opening statement, they would start with the Indian or the U.S. government passed the Indian Removal Act, and then they would state their claim, right? Either to protect the Native Americans. Well, that's what it would be, right? Because they're all number ones are starting.
Yeah, listen up, guys. Listen up, guys. If you're number one, you're starting your statement with your kind of claim, right? That the United States passed the Indian Removal Act and that it was passed, and then ... Finish your statement, whichever one you are. Passed to protect the Native Americans, passed to get the Native Americans out of the way. Once you make that statement, right, that's your claim, opening claim, then you can give your first reason and piece of evidence. Crazy, huh? Super intense. My class is ready to go. You guys ready? Yeah, no, maybe. So, okay.
You're reviewing your notes or looking to see what they're typing?
On your marks. Get set.
Number two, you are waiting until this timer is out. Then it will be your turn. Number one, it's going to be your turn right now.
Yeah, number one, it's your turn right now. Number two is you're waiting until they are done. You should have your T-chart out reviewing what your opening remarks are going to be. Don't forget, you need to acknowledge the other side and what they said, and use the frames that are on the document there to help you if you need to. Ready, set, go.
You should state the reason before that. If you would say the reason, you get your evidence.
Again, you should not have the other debate open right now. You should be reviewing your statement, what your first argument's going to be. Yeah. If you want to paraphrase the quote. So the question over here, Mrs. V, was, does a quote count as just one sentence, or if there's multiple sentences in the quote? And what I think we should do, if they're going to use a quote, that should just count as one. And or if they want to paraphrase the quotes, that way, I mean, a quote might be almost their whole 5 sentences there, depending on which quote
That
they choose.
sounds good to me. I'm thinking they should not be quoting more than 2 sentences at a time, though.
Okay. So yeah, if your quote is longer than 2 sentences, then you might need to think about paraphrasing it or breaking it up into multiple parts of your argument. Can I turn this off then in between? Or what would you suggest? Like, take it off. Okay. Yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. Say everything. Okay. And we'll be able to gauge here, Mrs. V, kind of the time frame it seems like it might take, right? So giving them 5 minutes, see if we need to give a little less maybe, or a little bit more. So far seems okay. Just a quick show of hands. After about halfway, how many of you are already done with your opening statement? Raise your hand, like actually raise it so I can see. Okay, I have about 5 that are done, about halfway through. Mm-hmm. Okay. Remember, you are not able to give your response, your rebuttal, your counter argument until the 5 minutes is up. So even if your person is done, you are not to respond. That's why we want to make sure that you're not just reading along as they're going, so that way you can make sure you're prepared, you're ready to go, and as soon as the 5 minutes starts, you can read what they said and go from there. As I'm talking. Probably. 1 minute. Those of you that are waiting, make sure you are prepared. You have your opening remark. Make sure you are ready to respond back.
So it looks like for my class, 5 minutes is about the right amount of time.
Okay, perfect.
Some of them finished a little earlier, but some of them are still finishing right now.
So what do you think, Mrs. V? We got 30 seconds here. Some students are already wanting to read the number 2s. They're wanting to read what the person responded or what the person said, so that way they can maybe have a little bit of extra time
I think
to
they
prepare.
can start reading as long as they don't type until the timer's up.
Perfect.
So number 2s, you have about 10 seconds until your turn begins.
Woo! That was loud. Could you hear that, or was it just me?
We can hear it. It wasn't so loud on our end, though.
Oh, okay. That was super loud in my ear. Ready, set, round number 2, go. So you have to read what they said first before you write.
And you need to start out by acknowledging the point they made and then stating your claim.
So now, number ones, your job is to try to predict what is your partner going to be saying in response to your original statement, your original claim, and what kind of argument now can you make, or at least be ready to make, when you read theirs. Okay, so again, if you want to read theirs as they're writing, that's fine. Your hands need to be off of your keyboard though.
You are welcome to watch while they type, but if it's not your turn, you cannot type back. You have to just watch.
One thing we want to encourage everybody is, we talked about not making it a personal attack, right? That you're addressing the idea, you're addressing what is being talked about, not necessarily who is saying it. But we also want to encourage you to have a voice and to be able to try to create your arguments in a way that's hopefully trying to persuade the other person to see your side, right? You're trying to
Yeah,
get them
so
to understand what you're saying.
it's important to, even though we don't want to be personal, to be passionate when you're making your claims. Okay, this is a passionate issue, so you want to make it real and tap into those emotions.
Definitely. You don't have to. If you have a quote, you can put it in. Yeah.
So similar to what we did on the zoo essays, when in our introduction, we really, if you were writing against zoos, made it seem like zoos were a terrible place for animals. Or if you were writing for zoos, we made it seem like zoos were a great place for animals. On this issue, you would make it want to seem like this was either a terrible decision for the Native Americans or it was a great thing for the Native Americans, depending on what side you're arguing for.
One minute. If you are reading your partner's responses as they're going, it's important to try to start identifying things you're going to be responding back to specifically, things they say that you want to address in your own counter argument to them. All right, number ones. Round three, go.
Number one, you should be responding now. Number two, you are watching and preparing your next argument.
So, Mrs. V, can we be honest and say that probably the number ones have a little bit harder of a time in finding good reasons to be able to counteract what the number twos are going to say. So
Agree.
in this time while you're waiting, I would highly suggest, especially if you had a hard time finding reasons on your T chart, go back into the articles, look and see what other things you can find. You want to make sure that you are giving as best of an argument, even though it may seem a daunting task for you to convince the other side that it was not a good thing, right? Or there wasn't good intentions in it. Um, so take this time that you have right now to really, really research and really try to figure out what you're going to say.
And keep in mind, it's not so much what you personally believe to be true, but you're just trying to manipulate the evidence to make a good argument. Mr. Ramirez, random key point here, but in reading some of the debates, I'm seeing a lot of people that seem to think that Jefferson was involved in this act, and I just wanted to clarify that this is President Jackson. Big difference.
Big difference, guys. Simple mistake, though, right?
Those J names get confusing.
Jefferson, Jackson, it's all the same thing. One's on the 20.
30 more
Is
seconds in this
Jefferson on the
round.
two? Jefferson's on the $2 bill. Is that true?
So number twos are almost up again. You guys should be ready. Hopefully you have an argument prepared.
Round four.
Wait, we type 4 times? Oh, yeah.
So as number two is beginning their second argument, second reason here, each pair will have one more argument before the final. So a total of two more arguments after this round.
So basically, in all, you're going to be making 3 main points or 3 reasons, and then the fourth one will be your closing argument.
Wrap it up. Then
Mr. Ramirez, is Brandon still there? Because we're not seeing any typing from him.
He's working on it. A good question over here, Mrs. V, for the quotes for their evidence. Should they cite the source where they got it from to show their
Yes.
understanding?
Most of the evidence stems that we gave them, the sentence frame, start with according to source number or in source number. So if they use one of those, they're already saying what source it came from.
Perfect. One minute.
So we're about halfway through the debate at this point. Both sides have had a chance to give 2 of their 4 main points. I'd just like to see by show of hands how many people think they're winning the debate. Oh yeah, my class feels real confident over here. We seem to have a lot of winners. How about yours?
We're about 50-50 over here.
We'll see. Mr. Ramirez and I will see at the end of the debate.
Hey, don't try to distract our students over here. Okay, we need them to be focused on the task at hand. Round 5.
And back to person number 1. Are you number 1? Oh, yeah. Back. And you're going to get more credit, more points, a stronger argument if you continue to give a variety of new and unique reasons for your viewpoint. Try not to repeat the same reasons and the same evidence over and over. That's not going to make your argument stronger.
Yeah, nobody likes arguing with somebody who just says the same thing over and over and over again.
You gotta have more reasons. Best evidence wins.
Mm. Our class is issuing a challenge over here, Mrs. V, for a zoo debate in this format here. Um, so I don't know. We'll let that simmer a little bit.
That's not a bad idea. And Mr. Ramirez and I have some other future topics in mind that we may need to debate.
Also, there is no conceding the argument before the actual debate is over. So you cannot just tell the other person that, okay, you won, and there's nothing I can do about it anymore. You gotta, till the very, very end. Never
If
give
you
up, never surrender.
if your side won, pretend that you are President Jackson and you are trying to sell this Indian Removal Act to the United States. You are trying to convince people that this is a great idea. So think of it that way. You have to try to sell this. You have to try to make people believe that you are doing something good for the Native Americans.
We're gonna refrain. Yeah, we're gonna stay away from that. Not today. We'll discuss that at halftime and figure out for the next debate if that's going to be. The question was if they would be allowed to include images in their debate.
That has interesting possibilities. We'll
Round
have
six.
to check that out and see how we can make it work.
Yeah, I told them no for now. Number twos. Number twos. Blues. Oh, do the best you can. Okay, one question here, Mrs. V, that we didn't really talk about, and let me know what you think. So for our final argument, our closing argument here, typically people have different perspectives on whether or not they want to be the first one to to give their argument, or some people like actually being last and getting the final word. And so, do you think there's a fair way to do that, or should we just have the number ones go first and have the number twos go second?
No, you know
Off the
what?
top of your head, what do you think?
I think for final argument, they should everybody write at the same time.
Oh, okay. No, not final argument yet. I know. I was trying to think, if there's a rock paper scissors online way to be able to do that, but again, for another day, we'll figure that out. But
We have
I like
another
that idea.
question for final argument. Should they include a quote in their final argument? I'm thinking not. I wouldn't necessarily want a repeat of quotes that they've already used. That maybe if they had something new that they haven't incorporated yet.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Basically, like.
Mrs. V, what do you think about this? We got 2 minutes left before the final round, before the final arguments. Do you think maybe giving everybody just maybe a minute or two to kind of gather their thoughts, gather their ideas, nobody's typing, and then when we say go, then they're able to start? Or do you think that they're prepared to just, as soon as
No, I think that's a good idea, and I think they need a little bit of guidelines on the format of how to start their final argument, maybe
okay,
a sentence frame.
sounds good. Final argument is next, so you have 1 minute for number twos to finish up.
Oh crap! I almost deleted everything I would have tried. It's just Control Z to come back. Which one are you? Wait.
Okay, so let's do this. Listen up, everybody. Let's move our laptops just halfway, so I have everybody's attention. So a couple guidelines here for your final argument. Couple guidelines for your final argument here. So you can attack it in a couple different ways. All right, you can use it as a chance to summarize the key points that you already made to kind of bring it home in that way to help them to, or at least to remind them of all the reasons you've already stated.
So that would be sort of like the conclusion of an essay?
Yeah, like the conclusion, right? But at the same time, some effective ways in order to kind of wrap things up is to provide them with kind of one last thing to think about in relationship to your argument. Something that's going to tap into their emotions, something that's going to make them feel like your side, right? You're getting them to, or you're trying to convince them that your side is correct. Guys, laptops halfway, please. Not a typing time. Thanks. You're trying to convince them with your last moment here. So in terms of the time limit, Mrs. V, should we say they have the time limit, but there's no limit to how much they can write? Does that sound good? So they can write more than 5?
I would like to see them restate their claim, so why they think that the U.S. government passed the Indian Removal Act, restate their main points, and then, like you said, end with a powerful closing statement, something that's going to have some passion and some feeling behind it.
Good. So then we'll have them do a combination of everything, right? So restating the claim, restating their reasons, and then leaving the other person with something to think about. Why is their reason important, or what kind of significant lasting impression they can make at the very end.
Sounds good.
Okay, I have one question here.
They can write more than 5 sentences.
They are allowed to, correct?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Nick, question? Typing at the same time, we're going to give you, I'm going to put on the timer. Nobody's typing right now. I'm going to put, what do you think, Mrs. V, 2 minutes? Listen, 2 minutes to gather your thoughts. Nobody's typing, right? Nobody's typing yet. 2 minutes to gather your thoughts.
Silent thinking.
Silent thinking, okay? And then once the timer starts, you'll have 5 minutes, but you'll be able to write as much as you need to write. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. 2 minutes. No typing. Gathering your thoughts. Formulating your final argument.
So you're not typing right now. You're just thinking, planning. Perfect.
So a good question here as people are planning, when they're writing their final arguments, they don't necessarily have to, they don't have to acknowledge the other side, but again, I mean, this is kind of your final statement. So if you want to acknowledge that, okay, I understand that this is your argument, but, and then you give your final rebuttal, your final counter argument to that, that's fine as well. That might make for a more convincing argument or final statement, but that's up to you.
Agreed. I don't think you necessarily start by acknowledging the other side, but I would say somewhere in your closing argument, you would want to acknowledge at least one counterclaim because that's going to make your overall argument stronger.
Well, don't add a quote.
So can they start typing?
5 minutes are going to be on the clock. On your marks. Get set. Go. Your
Both
final
people
chance
are
to
typing at
convince.
the same time. Make sure you're using the correct color.
Your final chance to convince the other side. As they're working here, Mrs. V, do you want to give maybe a student or two a chance to share with the other class maybe what, maybe one of the key points that they learned from the debate, or at least maybe one of the best arguments they heard in the case of one or the other? What do you think?
That sounds good. I also think, in the spirit of sportsmanship, that maybe we should meet up in the hallway face to face so they can shake hands with their opponent.
I would say, that that might be a good idea as well. You know, source, include your source in there too. The perks of coming to Dad's classroom. Get some candy. Good. Can you say bye to everybody? No, maybe. Too many people. So maybe what we can do is we can have a student who is from the number one be able to share something their partner, a good argument their partner made, and then a student who was a number two also share a good argument that their number one made against them.
Okay, so they're not sharing their own arguments, they're sharing something that they learned from the other person.
Yeah, I think that might be good. Give them a chance to kind of take an honest look at their partner's responses, how they were able to formulate their opinion, and give them a chance to share what they thought. Like if I'm a number two and I'm like, okay, man, this number one made a good point in this particular case, and here's what they said. I think that might be beneficial.
Right.
Or we could give multiple.
No, that
We
sounds
can have
good.
one
Makes
person
them have
share
to
their
listen.
own. Yeah.
I don't know.
30 seconds. After the timer goes off, no more typing, so maybe we can have somebody share too one of the, like, what was the lasting image or lasting kind of reason that somebody in their final arguments made to the group. What was kind of the last thing they felt like they needed to share. Time. Laptop's halfway. Finish your sentence, but that's it. That's it. Okay, real quick question. That way we can make the most of the time that we have. So, just a quick show of hands between classes. How many number ones felt like they were able to give good arguments? Maybe you didn't feel like you were able to win or not, but maybe you felt like if you made a good statement, you were able to at least get your point across. How many number ones felt like they were able to do what they were tasked with today? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I think a little less than half. Maybe I think there was still some of them that felt like the first side trying to prove that the Native Americans or that United States had the Native Americans' best interest in removing them. I think some people still felt like they had a hard time being able to give good evidence. But so let's do this. So Mrs. V, we can take the headset and we can just kind of have the microphone have certain students share, so that way everybody can hear. And so we'll allow just a few brave souls that would like to share with us. Let's start with the number two side, and those people that were number twos, somebody that had a partner who made a great argument, one good reason or one good piece of evidence. So I have one here. Mrs. V, maybe you can have somebody on deck to step up after that. Sound good?
He's about to say my name. 3, 2, 1. Does anybody want to share? Wait, that's number 2. Want to share a good argument that they heard from the answer? I'm not even at number 2. I'm 4. Yeah. Hold on, I gotta find it. Oh no, I don't. No, I heard it. So like, if you wouldn't be sharing your own argument, you're sharing something, a good argument that your opponent. Maybe.
A lot of good ones, but
I guess I have one. So they're gonna share one first, and then you can share one.
all right, Mrs. V, you ready to go?
We're ready.
Okay, so first one I have somebody who's going to be sharing what good argument number one had on their side, okay? Should we have them say the name of the person?
Yes.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, it was Who's Gina?
Oh.
I'm Nick.
I'm sorry, was that Jana with an N or Jada with a D?
N.
Oh, Jane. Oh.
Thank you.
Um, she said that the Indian Removal Act was passed to protect the Indians and make sure their tribes lived longer and prospered. For instance, in the document 1, it states the United States will pay to send the natives to the land where they may live longer and possibly survive as a people. This shows the United States' intention was to protect the Indians and move them to better lands. The U.S. would not just give money to the Indians to survive in their new land if they did not care about their well-being. So that's pretty good.
Well played. All right, we have Cassie over here that's going to share one.
Okay, this is from Alex. Okay, he said, I understand your idea of the settlers taking the Indians' land from them, but settlers also let the Indians stay, and they would civilize them in the white version of civilization. This information was found on Source 1 or the background information.
Awesome. Do you have a last name for that one? For
That
Alex?
was Alex Korn.
Okay, awesome. Good job, Alex. Great. Okay, so we have, let's see, we have somebody that wanted to share that's a number 1 that had a good argument for number 2 that their partner shared with them?
Anybody?
Nico, you want to? Okay. So I got one over here. Hold on a second.
On it said?
Hey, Andre, you're going to get Nico. He said Nico. You want to?
Yeah, so you don't have to read the whole entire response, but just tell us what was the key reason or what was the key piece of evidence that you thought they did a good job with, okay?
My person's name is Andre Williams.
Hold on. We're all trying to recover from shock over here. Woo! All right, we're ready. We're ready.
He said that the Americans were only removing the Indians for their own benefits. Source 3 states that the Cherokee farmed some of the Georgia's richest land. In 1829, gold was discovered there. Settlers, miners, and land speculators began trespassing on Cherokee territory in pursuit of riches. This means that they were just trying to get the land for their benefit and not trying to protect the Indians.
Nice job, Andre.
Awesome.
Good quote there.
Yeah, I liked how he gave his quote, but then he also gave his commentary, right? So he was able to explain this shows how, and after that, it's easy just to put a quote and just say, okay, I'm done, but to actually give the response and give the evidence, or to show how the evidence relates to the topic, I think was good. Okay, so what do you guys got?
That was pretty money. We have Brenna here, and she's going to share one from Jaden.
Sweet.
He said,
All right, go for it.
Source 3 states those Indians who live nearest to us have generally suffered most severely by the corrupting effects of alcohol and by the loss of their own principles of self-control, few as these are. This quote states how the white men that lived by the Indians had gotten alcohol to the Indians, making them die.
Nice, just like that. Well done. All right, Mrs. V. Do you think? Get this. Do we need a meeting out in the hallway? Would that be?
Yeah, we're going to have to keep this not too rowdy, though, because there's other classrooms in session. But a nice, cordial meet and greet and a handshake.
Okay, so some of you know who your partner was, and some of you don't, and so you will need to actually ask some people to find out. First debate down. Success. See you 6-7.